time of day. 'Cause I ain't been doing nothing but drinking and thinking, yeah. Oh, since you've been away.
DJ Payne 1.
Oh, come on.
I don't think that I'm coming back. Boy, I told you I'm done with that. You think you can do me so wrong? I'm not the one, no, I'm not the
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for August 7th, 2025. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland. We're going to be talking about the Micah Parsons situation in Dallas. And I actually want to go over a team that it seems like a lot of people are very low on, and I'm like actually really, really high on them. And that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll talk about that later. But yeah. Before we get into the episode, please make sure, guys, to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. We also have other shows on the Kretschman Media Network. The Mic Drop with Benjamin Garcia. He is going to be live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and 7 a.m. West Coast Time. So please make sure to go check that out. I would greatly appreciate that. That would help out the page big time. And yeah, and also make sure to subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into the topics for today's video. I want to start in Dallas with Micah Parsons. Obviously, this is the number one story in the football world at the current moment. Here's what I believe with this whole situation. By the way, I want you guys to know this is a Cowboys helmet in the background. I am a Cowboys fan. I have covered the Cowboys for about 4 years now. And I've been talking to some people about this trade request. And from what I'm hearing, the way things are at the current moment, this trade request is real. But what I keep hearing is the way things are right now, not things can't get better with this situation. It's the way things are right now, he wants to be out of Dallas. Now, if they start negotiating and they start putting money in front of him and they start actually trying to work towards a contract, then I think that's a little different. I don't think he wants to leave Dallas, but I think with the way things are right now, I do believe he wants out. But obviously, I do think that things can change. I also heard that this is from Bobby Bell on 105.3 The Fan, that Micah Parsons did want to negotiate a contract in 2024. David Mulugeta saw the Cowboys representatives at the combine and let them know, hey, we're open for business. You know, just letting you guys know that we are open for business. And the Cowboys, their response was, hey, you know, we have other contracts that we got to get done. We got to get Dak's contract done. We got to get CD's contract done. And David Mulugeta's response was just like, okay, do what you got to do. Just letting you know that if you guys want to talk, we can talk. So that is from the agent side of things. From the Cowboys side of things, they're saying that Micah Parsons didn't want to negotiate a contract last year, that he was okay waiting for, you know, the season to play out and for him to put another really good season together for them to negotiate. So that's why this is interesting. It's two contradicting stories from both sides. I don't know who to believe. I'm actually willing to believe Micah Parsons and his side on this, just because we have seen the Cowboys and how they've negotiated contracts in the past. I'm actually willing to take Micah Parsons' side on this, even though I do think that Micah Parsons has not done a great job during this negotiation period of actually, you know, using the leverage that he has to his advantage. So that's where I come from, where I say, I think both sides do have a little bit of fault here, but I'm more so blaming the Cowboys. But here's the most interesting thing about this whole situation. If Micah Parsons is as fed up with the Cowboys as his side is making it seem, he should file a grievance on the Cowboys at the current moment. And the reason why is because a team cannot negotiate with a player without their agent being involved. Both sides have told the public that this has happened. The Cowboys said, yes, this actually happened, that we negotiated with Micah Parsons without his agent present. Micah Parsons said, yes, they negotiated with me without my agent being present. That is a violation of the CBA. Micah Parsons could file a grievance on the Cowboys if he is that disgruntled with the team. Not only that, another clause in the CBA is if there is a verbal agreement between both sides, between a player and a team, that needs to be in writing ASAP. That's got to get in writing immediately. So that's why this is so interesting to me, because I do believe Micah Parsons is fed up with the way things currently are. But I do also think that the Cowboys can make amends for this and can get to a point where Micah Parsons is happy being on the team, because I do think he likes being a Dallas Cowboy. It's the team he grew up loving. I do think that he likes the things that the Dallas Cowboys can provide to him off the field and all the opportunities he's been given. So I do think he wants to play for the team, but I also do feel like he wants to be appreciated, and he deserves to be appreciated. I think you can make a case for this guy being the best defensive player in football, in my personal opinion. When you see how much he elevates the defense when he's not on the field compared to when he's on the field, and the fact that there are lists out there of all time where it's just Micah Parsons and Lawrence Taylor, Micah Parsons, Reggie White, or just Micah Parsons on that list. Micah Parsons is an outstanding football player. And this is one thing that I absolutely can't stand. For years now, other fan bases outside of the Cowboys and the national media, there's plenty of people in the national media who talk about how overrated Micah Parsons is, and he's not one of the best pass rushers in the league, and he's not one of the best defensive players in the league. But so if you think that, if you're a fan base that thinks Micah Parsons is overrated, why are you telling your front office to trade the farm to go get this guy? If you're one of the people in the national media for years that tried to tell people that Micah Parsons wasn't as good as people thought he was, why are you sitting there yelling at the Cowboys and yelling at Jerry Jones to get this contract done? If you believe Micah Parsons is one of the best defensive players in football, if you're an opposing fan base, you shouldn't be calling him overrated. And if you're in the national media and you don't think he's one of the best players on the defensive side of the ball, you shouldn't be upset that Jerry Jones is hesitant to pay him, even though I don't think he's hesitant to pay him. I think he's willing to pay him. I think that this is just all an act. This is all just part of the game that the Jones family are playing to get as many headlines as they could possibly get, and to get in the First Take headlines and all the FS1 Colin Cowherd headlines, because they are generating revenue for their football team. The brand exposure that they're getting from people talking about them and leading all of their shows off with the Cowboys, all of that stuff is helping the Dallas Cowboys brand, which is why I think Jerry Jones is continuing to play this game with Micah Parsons, and why he keeps this team in the headlines, because this is just all a part of the game. Micah Parsons will be signed. I think right now it's August 7th. They're about 28 days from their first game. Give it about, I think, 10 to 14 days, and I think there will be a deal done with Micah Parsons and the Cowboys. I don't think that this is necessarily a hard deal to get done. All they got to do is say, hey, TJ Watt got paid this. I want this. This is the figure amount. We want 4 years. And then the terms and all the guarantees, that stuff is stuff that will have to be negotiated out. But I don't think that this is a hard deal to get done. I just feel like one side is stalling because I do think that Micah Parsons' side wants to get this done. I think that the Cowboys are really stalling in this situation. And that's where ultimately I come to the conclusion that I do think this will get done. And I think Jerry Jones, feels like this deal is closer to getting done than Micah Parsons. I just think that this is all part of the game that he's playing. So before we get into the next topic, I want to remind you guys, please hit that like button and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. Also, make sure to check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media platform. Make sure to go check out the Stadium Pulse with Tegan Randolph. He's talking about college football on that podcast. He had an excellent first show. Same thing with Benjamin Garcia. Had a great first show as well. He's doing the same thing that we're doing on this show, talking about national sports. So please make sure to go check out those pages. You can find those pages in the home tab. We'll also link them in the description. I would greatly appreciate if you guys checked them out. Okay, so moving from one organization that has quite a bit of dysfunction in it to another organization that is just flat out dysfunctional, we have to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Unless my eyes don't work, why in the world is Shedeur Sanders not the starting quarterback on the Cleveland Browns? I get it. Joe Flacco was able to win some games for them 2 years ago, but at the same time, what happened when they got to the playoffs? They got absolutely demolished in that game. Dillon Gabriel is not a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders. Because what my eyes told me last year when I watched both of these guys play is that Shedeur Sanders is clearly a better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. Yes, Dillon Gabriel can operate an offense. Now, this is on the college level. He was able to operate an offense. He was able to get his playmakers the ball. I actually think that Shedeur Sanders did more than just operate the offense at Colorado. I think that he did a really good job of elevating that offense at Colorado. It wasn't a very good team. It wasn't a very good program before Shedeur Sanders came to that program, and I think really turned it around alongside Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter. I just think that he is the best quarterback on this team. I think that he has the highest ceiling out of all the quarterbacks on this team. When you talk about Joe Flacco, Dillon Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, none of these guys are desirable quarterbacks. Dillon Gabriel in the third round, that was just a flat out reach. But I think that Shedeur Sanders has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. I'm not saying it's going to happen. And when I say potential to be a top 10 quarterback, I'm more so looking at a guy who's in that 8 to 10 range at max, right? I had a second round grade on him coming out of Colorado. There were people that believed that this guy was the next Joe Burrow. I mean, like, those people aren't to be taken seriously in football conversations, people who thought that. But what I think Jared Goff is, he's a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, like Jared Goff, who he can operate an offense. He can do all of the things that you ask him to do. He can get your playmakers to football. I think that he can do that on the NFL level. I think he has a pretty good arm. I think that he could do all the things that you ask a quarterback to do on the NFL level. Now, do I think he can be a guy who could be a difference maker for a team? Absolutely not. But they drafted him in the 5th round, right? Like, if you drafted Jared Goff in the 5th round, to me, I'd be ecstatic about that, because most 5th round quarterbacks don't turn out to be anything, let alone a legitimate starter in the league for a team that, makes the playoffs year in and year out, right? So if Shedeur Sanders can be that, I personally believe that a 5th round pick for that, I mean, absolutely. But I just wonder, when it comes to this front office and coaching staff, did they actually want Shedeur Sanders, or was this something that was pushed onto them by ownership? Because, to be honest with you, when they drafted him, it's not like they looked very excited when they drafted him. I mean, you're talking about a guy who media scouts had as a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. Now, I do get that there is a divide between media scouts and team scouts, but I don't think that the divide between the media scouts and the national scouts is that drastic to where media scouts had him in the 1st round. NFL scouts, they didn't pick him until the 5th round. I don't think that the difference between that is that drastic. He's probably, in reality, a 2nd or 3rd round talent that I think actually he landed in a great position with the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski. I think he could be very successful in that offense. I just don't think that that is an organization that is really embracing Shedeur Sanders. Now, to be honest with you, I do grow tired of seeing all these people on ESPN and FS1 talk about how wrong the Cleveland Browns are doing Shedeur Sanders. Like, Shedeur Sanders did this to himself as well. I mean, that was one of the worst pre-draft processes of all time. Like, if he had a good pre-draft process, he would have been probably the Giants quarterback right now. They probably would have drafted him in the first round if he would have had a better pre-draft process than he had this past offseason, right? I mean, there's a case that maybe the Cleveland Browns would have drafted him at pick number 2 if he would have had a better pre-draft process, because at every turn, Shedeur Sanders made himself look as unappealing as possible to NFL teams, not taking meetings with certain teams and, trying to act like he was better than the teams that he interviewed with. I mean, you heard stories about him at the combine, brushing off certain installs when it came to the New York Giants when they were asking him certain questions, and he kind of just brushed it off when he was asked difficult questions. I mean, you heard these stories. You heard all the things that Todd McShay was telling his audience about, Shedeur Sanders' combine interview. So while the Browns, yes, I don't think are embracing Shedeur Sanders and the fact that they were able to get, I think, a second-round talent in the 5th round, Shedeur Sanders did do a lot of this to himself, and he got a speeding ticket this offseason. Like, he's got to know better than that. He's got to know that the spotlight is on him. He's going to be one of these quarterbacks that, just like Caleb Williams, just like Dak Prescott, just like Kirk Cousins, just like some of these other quarterbacks out there, they're going to pay attention to what you don't do and the bad that you do instead of the good that you do. There are quarterbacks in this league that for some reason, it doesn't matter how poorly they play. People will always look at the good that they do compared to the bad. Guys like Justin Herbert, guys like Jordan Love. People will look at the good that they do instead of the bad. Now, I do like, by the way, for the Herbert heads out there, I'm a big Justin Herbert fan, but let's call it what it is. There are a lot of his fans out there that completely ignore all the bad things that he'll do over the course of a season, right? I think that Shedeur Sanders is unfortunately going to be one of those guys to where he can be a guy that puts up 30-plus touchdowns and 4,000 yards, but people are going to recognize only the bad and not talk about the good with this guy. And I think he's really going to put himself in that spotlight. And I think that that's unfortunate. But again, there is an element of we have to hold Shedeur Sanders accountable in this instance. Shedeur Sanders did not make himself appealing to the national audience, and he didn't make himself appealing to NFL teams. And, I do think that some of the Shedeur Sanders praise that we saw last season where people were talking about him as a top 3 pick was like really forced. And I do think people are trying to force certain narratives on Shedeur Sanders, like, hey, he's the most pro-ready quarterback since Joe Burrow, or maybe since Andrew Luck. I think I saw a tweet like that. Completely forced. That analysis is not to be taken seriously. Mel Kiper saying that he's a combination of Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, not to be taken seriously. People saying that, I heard Stephen A. Smith, if the Cowboys had the number 1 overall pick, they'd pick Shedeur Sanders. Well, they didn't even pick the guy in the 3rd round when they had the opportunity to pick him. Again, all of these narratives completely forced. But I do think that there are narratives being forced right now on the opposite side where I don't think people are giving this young man a chance. And I do think that if Kevin Stefanski coaches him up and some of the flaws that he has in his game when it comes to drifting in the pocket and holding on to the ball for too long and taking bad sacks, those things can be coached out of a player. And I think if you're able to coach some of those deficiencies out of his game and get him within structure and get him on a good path, I think that you'll have a guy that could be a legitimate starting quarterback in the league. So there is that. Talked about Shedeur Sanders. We talked about Micah Parsons. I can't wait for football season. I really can't. I mean, we are close here, right? We are about a month away. This offseason feels like it has been, man, so long. But it's kind of felt like short at the same time. I don't know. It's a bit weird like that. There's a lot of preseason games coming up this weekend that I'm excited for. I'm excited to see Shador in the preseason. I want to see, what's going to happen there. And yeah, we're going to be bringing you guys coverage all season. I'm going to see if I can go live after the Thursday games, but we're definitely going live on Saturday after the college football games. Not this upcoming Saturday, obviously, because there's no college football going on, but just during the season, we're going to be doing that. And we're also going to be going live after the Sunday night games. So looking forward to all of that. Now, I want to get into the last topic of the show. There is a team that is, I think, getting really disrespected this offseason. I get it. Some of the moves were questionable this offseason, but I'm actually very high on this team, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I actually think their roster is very talented, right? I don't think that they're going to be different this year because of Aaron Rodgers. I do think Aaron Rodgers is a much better quarterback than Russell Wilson, even at this stage of his career. I just don't think Russell Wilson really provides much as a quarterback. I do think that Aaron Rodgers, there is a element that he provides that Russell Wilson just doesn't. But when I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm looking at this defense. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have maybe the best defense in the league. At least they have the best defensive front in the league. I mean, you talk about Herbing, Highsmith, Watt, Harmon, the first round pick that they drafted. I'm very high on him. Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward. They have so much talent on that defensive line. I think that this is the best defensive line in the league. I think their linebackers are really damn good as well with Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen. I think their secondary is pretty solid. And obviously, we know how the Pittsburgh Steelers play defense. They play it at a very high level. And I expect that they're going to do the same this upcoming season. Where I think the difference could be in this football team is going to be they have to be better offensively, right? And can Aaron Rodgers provide more to this offense than what Russell Wilson did? I absolutely think he can do that. And I do think that, their offense, they actually do have weapons on this offense. It's just kind of a little different than what you would expect from maybe when you see the Cincinnati Bengals, where they're able to line up in 11 personnel and just kill you in 11 personnel. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, when they get into their 12 personnel looks, are going to be dangerous because they have two tight ends that I think are very, very good tight ends. They have Freiermuth and they have Jonnu Smith, two tight ends that I think are very, very good. And then they have DK Metcalf on the outside. And Roman Wilson, we'll see what happens in year 2. Calvin Austin, we got to see. And I'm actually a little higher on their offensive line than most people. I think it's a really young offensive line, but there's some players that I really like on it. I'm a big fan of Zach Frazier. He had a very impressive rookie year. Isaac Samalu has always been a very steady veteran. McCormick is a second-year player. We'll see what happens there. Troy Fatanu at right tackle, second-year player. I was very high on him coming out of the draft. Didn't have a great rookie season, but going into his second year, I think you'll see a better performance from him. Broderick Jones at left tackle. He's going into his third year. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's only 24 years old, right? So he's still a young player. We'll see what happens with that offensive line. If they can be a good offensive line and they give Aaron Rodgers time to throw the football and they can run the ball effectively, I think offensively they will be a lot better than they were last year. And I do think that when you look at Aaron Rodgers, what is he going to be able to provide to this offense? He's going to be able to play within structure. If you give him a clean pocket, he's going to be able to shred defenses. I think still he's going to be able to deliver the ball on time. Pre-snap, he's going to make all the right reads. I'm very high on this team going into this year. Now, what is the ceiling for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year? I think they can make the AFC Championship game, but some things have to go their way, right? So I think the path to getting out of the first round for them, they got to get that 5th seed. right? Because if you're one of these 6th or 7th seeds, now you're dealing with Baltimore, now you're dealing with Buffalo, now you're dealing with Kansas City. And I just think those 3 teams for the foreseeable future are going to be teams that get to the second round and make it to the divisional round. Like, I think for the foreseeable future, they're going to be the three of the 4 teams in the divisional round. To me, Pittsburgh's got to deal with teams like, the Broncos and the Chargers and teams like that. Can they compete with those teams for that 5th seed? Yeah, I think they can do that. Absolutely. I think that their team is that good. I think their defense is that good, right? So that's going to be their path. They got to hope that things go their way. They got to be able to stay healthy. You never wish for injuries upon other team, but they happen, and teams don't feel sorry for other teams if they have injuries, because other teams have injuries as well. So if they get that type of path, yeah, I think they can make a conference championship game appearance. But, you kind of ask yourself, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, is that enough? Is that enough if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? And that's a question that they have to ask themselves, but they have to really hope that things go their way. But unfortunately for the AFC, if you're a team not named Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore, I kind of feel like that's the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future here. You got to kind of hope that you're that 4th team in the divisional round, and you got to hope that you get that 5th seed, especially if you're playing in the AFC North, where I don't think they're going to win that division, just because I think Baltimore is too good of a team. But again, you kind of have to hope that things break your way if you're Pittsburgh. And, if they're able to break their way, yeah, absolutely. I think that Pittsburgh can make something happen here. Now, when it comes to Pittsburgh, yeah, they're going to have to rely on a lot of these young players playing at a high level. When you talk about Derek Carman, when you talk about, the young offensive linemen that they've drafted over the past few years here, when you talk about Roman Wilson, he's going to have to take a step up this year. Not all those guys are going to take that step, but I think you're hoping that at least half of those guys take a step forward. And if they do, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are absolutely going to be a team to be reckoned with. And when you look at their division, obviously you have Baltimore. I'm picking them to win that division. But are they better than the Cleveland Browns? Absolutely. Are they better than the Cincinnati Bengals? I think so, even though Cincinnati has a really good quarterback. And obviously they have those receivers. Their defense is atrocious. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, when they play Cincinnati, I expect them to win at least one of those games, if not both of them, because I do think their defense is good enough to neutralize that offense. And when you look at the Bengals defense, they're not good at all. So I think that the Steelers can move the ball on that defense. And I think that that's ultimately what's going to come down to them getting second place in the division and being able to make the playoffs. So, I know it's cool to crap on the Steelers because it's a big brand and Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback and they made a few questionable decisions. But I think that ultimately some of those decisions that they made that people look at as questionable, it's going to go in their favor. Now, you don't like that they lost George Pickens. I think that that is a loss for them. But, you replace him with DK Metcalf. What's the drop-off there? I don't think it's massive. I think that there is a slight drop-off. I think George Pickens is a better receiver than DK Metcalf. But when you add Jonnu Smith, when I think losing Najee Harris and more so forcing the ball into Jaylen Warren's hands more often, I think that they're going to have a much better run game than they've had in years past, because I think they're going to be able to be a more explosive run game, especially with the fact that they drafted Caleb Johnson this past year. Yeah, I'm very high on the Steelers going in this year. I think that this is an 11-12 win football team, and I do think that they have a chance to make it far into the AFC playoffs here. But that is going to be it for the show today, guys. I appreciate you guys for coming out the channel. We're getting there. Every single day we're getting better, and I can't wait for the upcoming weeks here where we really get this thing rolling and we're really operating on a high level. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. So yeah, make sure to watch the mic drop at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and please make sure to check out the Stadium Pulse tonight at 6:30 Eastern time. I promise you those guys will be those shows will be fantastic. But also make sure to like the CEO Sports Show. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow us on our social media pages, the CEO Sports Show on Instagram, TikTok, and we are going to create an X page, I promise. So without further ado, I shouldn't say without further ado because that means that we're leading into something. Unless you are waiting for this episode to be over, which why are you even here if that's the case? So, all right, enjoy your Thursday, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. For my producer, Stefan, in the back, have a nice day.